Welcome to Ink and Magic, a podcast where we read and discuss the writing craft, world building, and romance of paranormal and fantasy novels.
If you love books with bite, set in worlds of magic and mayhem, then you're in the right place. My name's Nikisha Shanae. I go by an S.
And I'm Leslie. I write as L. Penelope. And welcome to the show.
Leslie, you're back.
Yes. It's been forever. We planned to take a short break. It got a little longer than expected, but we are back in full effect.
How was your summer?
My summer was lovely. I've had a lot of travel. I've had a lot of work. But yeah, it was good. Probably not as good and interesting as your summer, though. You've had adventures.
I did. I traveled a little too much. Went on a family cruise. Then my son left for Ghana, West Africa. Then my daughter left for California, but her leaving meant me and her getting in a car and driving across country. That is a whole story.
We could do a whole podcast on that adventure. We will spare you right now, but trust us.
She arrived safe and sound. Only one bike was sacrificed in the journey somewhere along Ohio and Illinois.
One bike and one vehicle, but
I completely skirted over that. Yeah, all I will say is that my 23-year-old daughter decided to buy a car off of Craigslist. That car is in a junk heap in Ohio somewhere. Yeah,
right.
It was.
She tried to drive it across the country.
It did. It got 500 miles.
Hey, that's more than I thought it was going to get.
It's a story. But another story, we read Silver Silence.
Silver Silence, season 2 of Psy-Changeling. I guess season 1 of the Psy Trinity. Yeah. We should talk at some point in this episode about whether this actually could be a series starter. If you have never read any of these books, could you start here? And I think the answer is no, personally.
No.
But we're in the age of Trinity, which is something that they said in the book, and I liked that. Starting season 2.
There's so much history, though. Yeah, I don't think this is only season 2 because it's for the readers
to break it up. But yeah, if you are trying to have an entry point and thinking you'll drop right in here, and I just don't know, it doesn't feel like that's a good idea. I feel like you have to start 16 books ago.
And it's not a critique because you'll be happy starting at book number 1.
Absolutely.
But here,
let us know in the comments if you disagree.
But here we've already met Silver before. She is the assistant of your favorite,
Caleb Krychek.
Yes, Leslie loves her some Caleb.
I do.
And we get some Caleb in here.
We get a little teleports here and there.
Teleports here, yeah. But I did love so Silver is a Psy. She's, as I said, she's Caleb's assistant for his massive conglomeration of businesses. And I love how at some point in the book, immediately Silver's in danger. So just know that. I'll come back to that in a second. But while she's out, Caleb was like, I needed to have 4 assistants just to replace one Silver. And I just thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
She's a very competent woman.
Super competent. She's also the head of MNET. Is that what it's called? The emergency response team that the Trinity created for all of the natural disasters and man-made disasters that have been occurring.
Yeah, a lot of the man-made disasters that are happening because of the conglomerate.
The conglomerate. That's the new bad guys. Also, but they added some new bad guys. So there's the conglomerate, which is a tri-racial group, like the Trinity, like the anti-Trinity, because they don't want racial harmony, even though 3 races are coming together to work against harmony for reasons, financial, ideological reasons. Not entirely sure.
Well,
power reasons.
Yeah, I'm interested in the villain here because there was, even though we're dealing with the conglomerate, we're dealing with one main villain in the conglomerate, and I felt like he was a Killmonger. But let's get back to him in a second. Let's go back to
you just dropped a bomb here. We'll have to come back to that.
Literally, the bomb will be dropped. But we meet Silver, and I love it. I had an argument with authors recently at a retreat where they were saying they do the meet cute on page 1. And I was like, wait, you need to get to know the hero. You get to know the heroine first. And they're like, no, we do the meet cute on page 1. And that happened here.
Well, I I wrote down that I missed having an actual meet cute. We do meet the two of them together, but they are not meeting on the page for the first time, which
No.
is an issue that I've long had with the series and many books. But I understand you can't always have a on-page meet cute. I love it when it happens. I feel like it's more and more rare the more books in the series that happen, but we do get them together on page one, which is
Mhm.
nice.
We get them together. Our hero is Valentin. He is a Russian bear.
The alpha of the Russian bears.
Oh my gosh, bears. I thought I loved me. Okay. It's always been like, do you love the wolves more or do you love the cats more? I love
Right.
the bears.
The bears are great. Bears are great.
Bears are perfection. They are like the the crazy side of the family that you can only handle once a year at the family reunion,
Yes.
and then you need a year to recover from them.
They have an extra tax at the pubs because they fight so much and they break so much stuff up, but they're also charming. They kidnap their mates, and to the point where, they kidnapped one of them fell in love with a human and kidnapped her, and her parents, listed her as missing, and it took a lot. They are very charming and
Yeah.
out of control, and we
Out of
love the bears.
control. Yes. So we meet Valentin on Silver's doorstep, and she's fed up with him, but at the same time, she's just resigned that this bear is not gonna leave her alone. He is clearly stalking this woman, but it is so charming how he's stalking her that you're just like, girl, you better give in. You know you're gonna give in, girl.
I know. And I love a pining hero. I love a hero who has decided that this is the woman for me,
Yes.
and I'm doing whatever it takes to
Get
get to
to
her.
her.
And that is Valentin to a T. He's like, she's Psy, she's still silent, but I'm gonna keep trying anyway.
He keeps trying and he sees the cracks in her armor and she sees the cracks in her armor and she's even in her inner monologue. She's like, why am I letting this bear do this? I know that he's pushing my buttons. He's doing it on purpose. I'm not going to get in a relationship with him. He's not the kind of person that if I do want to enter into a breeding contract, he's not the one. So why do I keep on? This is illogical and I'm Psy. This cannot be.
Right. Yeah, and she's, like a lot of these Psy who claim to be silent, she's lying to herself, or she's maybe just confused about her own emotions. Because, yeah, Silver is not quite as silent as she believes she is.
She's not quite silent as she believes she is, but the thing that really struck me that I think Nalini Singh was trying to do, I think Nalini Singh is constantly, she has these rules. And I feel like in my head, I like see her walking around her world building sheet like, what if I poked right there? And what she
Mm,
was poking in this book is what if a Psy had to keep silent? She kind of did this a bit um in the second book.
I think all the Psy have kind of been a variation of this. Like,
Yeah,
they need to stay silent for reasons. Vasek needed to be silent. Caleb needed to be silent. Faye, like all of them,
yeah,
she just tweaks the reason because with the world building.
but with Silver, her non-silence could literally kill her.
Sophia, same thing. I feel like that's been like the
Yeah,
Judd, it was gonna rebound and kill him. It's a variation of the same thing. She just
okay,
I'm impressed by her ability to have like new shades on new tunes, I guess, new melodies. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But
okay.
like it's the same thing over and over again, but it's different.
The same but different. So here comes Valentin barging into her apartment, or at least trying to get past and into her apartment. He keeps finding ways past her security, slipping her gifts, checking on her, looking in after her, trying to get under her skin. But this time, he sniffs and he smells something that's not quite right just before she passes out because Silver has been poisoned.
Right, yes. And he's bare senses can smell the poison. And he at first, it's interesting because it's like, I can't even get to my phone because I'll drop her. Like, he was just so
Mhm.
so torn and so, already caring for her so much. But he gets Caleb to give an assist and teleport her to a hospital, and he sniffs out all of the poison food in her apartment.
And then a subplot, and you know how Nalini Singh does her subplots. She drops the bomb, and then she's like, "I'm gonna get back to this." She drops the bomb that someone is trying to kill Silver. Silver is the second in command of this very powerful, Mercant family. Now, what really also fascinated me was how Leslie, you know, I always get this wrong. At the beginning of the chapter,
The epigraphs.
I always want to call it something else. So the epigraphs here were all different, but a lot of them were excerpts and quotes from merchants throughout history, Silver's family. And there was this legend that some of the merchants were like knights of old. And so you're constantly getting all of these epigraphs. Some of them were poets, some of them were knights, some of them were, it was just really lovely to see this family that you think is just lethal and hardcore, but then you get these other sides of them at the beginnings of these chapters. And I love that touch.
And that's also pre-silence. You're getting a lot of world-building information about how Psy could have been before silence. One of the biggest mic drops was that Lord Byron was Psy.
Yeah.
Shakespeare
Yeah.
was human, but Lord
Mhm.
Byron was Psy. And she just like throws that in there in the epigraph, and you're like, what? Because we talked about her Jane Austen reference
Yeah.
in
Yes.
before.
Yes.
So she's placing this in our world. Something happened.
Mhm.
It's an alternate version of our world. And yeah, I like it. I'm here for it. I think that I had some mixed feelings before, but if it's all seeded in, like bring it. Like give me more. Who else was Psy in our past, you know?
Love it. Was so here for it. So I also, it was like a contradictions too, where we would see Silver or one of the other merchants behaving in a way that was, for lack of a better word, harsh or
Mm.
silent is probably the best word. And then you got that epigraph. So I absolutely loved it. But back to the plot. So Silver, she's been poisoned, and everyone believes that the initial theory is that they're trying to take down the conglomerate is trying to take down the Mercant family. And they can do that they feel the best way to do that is by attacking the person who will take over the
Mhm.
family, because the person who is the lead of the family right now is Ina, who everyone refers to as grandmother.
Right. And we get a couple of scenes from, unknown people at the time in the
Mhm.
conglomerate who are like, yeah, Silver has to go. But initially, Silver and Ina believe that it's got to be one of the merchants, that someone in their own family has turned against them because of the security levels in Silver's apartment. She doesn't let anybody in. Even Valentin, with all his stalking, has never been past the front door. So to get the poison in her food, they suspect one of their own, which pushes us into the first kidnapping, I guess, of this book.
It was well, not consensual,
Well, she
but
did eventually consent.
she did eventually consent, but grandmother was, so Silver's passed out in hospital bed. And her grandmother is basically like, yeah, you need to take her because she's not going to go willingly.
To
She says to
Valentin, yeah.
Valentin, yes.
Because he saves her life and he respects Ina, and he recognizes her as an alpha, as a
Yes.
Psy alpha. Also, Silver is a
Yes.
Psy alpha. And yeah, so they cook up this thing that to keep Silver safe, of course, she's got to have this forced proximity and go live with the bears for a while, because no one's going to get to her if she's with the bears, which
Yes.
is a great. I like, when people, I love forced proximity. I think it's a great trope. You're
It's my
pushing this
favorite.
silent character into this rowdy bear cavern den. It's called Den Home, which I like. And, we
Mhm.
get to see, so the leopards live in houses, the wolves live in caves, and the bears also live in caves, but like nice caves, like tricked out caves, I guess. It's hard for me to visualize this.
Yeah. So we got Silver in Denholm, which was delightful. And so Silver's constantly thinking she is silent. She needs to be silent, but she's not unkind.
Mm,
And I like that distinction. So she knows that Valentin is trying to court her. She has no intention of being courted, but she's not mean to him. She knows that these bears are being hospitable to her. So she's on her best behavior. She knows, like, when the cubs come around to play, they don't understand everything, especially they probably haven't been around a lot of Psy. So again, she's making the logical decision to give them some leeway and to be kind. And to me, that's what her shields were really starting to break down.
yeah, because it's like she couches it in logic, like, oh, it's logical
Mhm.
not to harm the development of this child because they're not going to understand. But another side could very easily use logic to be cruel to the child, I guess. So yeah, her emotions are showing through. It shows the kind of person that she is, her personality, and why. maybe one of the reasons why Valentin liked her, because you wonder, what did he see about this cold, silent woman that made him, in the absence of her accepting the mating bond, because we find out that she's his mate, but she hasn't accepted it yet. So like, how does he doesn't really know for sure at the very, very beginning. He just sees this silent Psy badass woman and he wants her.
I think I have an answer to that.
Okay.
And to talk with that, I think we need to talk about nicknames, because he had 2 nicknames for her. The
Mm,
first one was Starlight, which was
yeah.
just beautiful. And I think I always, Nalini Singh, she's one of the people that did it first. Lucas always called Sasha Kitten.
Oh
I
yeah.
loved that, right? And Valentin calls Silver Starlight. And
Yeah.
he made up his own nickname. He would sign any gift that he gave to her, I am a teddy bear, and whatever the Russian word for teddy bear is, which I
Right.
can't tell you. He nicknamed himself.
And he called her like Starlichka, which I guess is Russian for
Like
starlight or
Starlight,
something.
I guess. But
And
yeah,
and everyone has multiple nicknames, and that actually is part of Russian culture. So she's bringing in something like, Valentin, they called him Mishka and
Mishka?
Velisha or something like that. Like, but I know in Russian, like, Mikhail is Mishka, and like there's different
Yeah,
names, like Pavel and it's Pashka and Yashka, or Pavel and Yuri, or whatever their names were. Everybody had lots of nicknames, and it's like their real name and then the Russian nickname and then the diminutive form of that. So she's really using that cultural aspect of them
yeah.
being set in Russia, in addition to the familiarity, the friendship, the love that they're showing by using these nicknames.
But Valentin had another nickname for Silver, and I think this is why he knew this was his mate. He called her Silver effing Merchant, and he didn't use the sanitized
Right.
version. And this kept getting repeated and repeated over again when she was acting like a boss in the
Right.
best way that a woman can be a boss. I think that's what he was just like, "Ooh, yeah, do your
Mm.
thing, girl."
Because
And
she
that's what
started talking about herself in that way. She was like, "I'm Silver effing Mercant." Like
Mhm,
he got her to view herself as an alpha, to view herself that way. Which, I mean, she
mhm,
already was powerful. She
mhm,
wasn't insecure in any way. But
mm-mm,
like that thing when then you get into a relationship being a mirror, and you're seeing
mhm,
yourself, and because he had so much admiration for her, that reflected in her, and then it reflects back to him when she's there for him at different times. So it was a great part of their relationship to show developing.
mhm. So while Silver is there in Denholm trying to recover and trying to keep Linton at bay, she does notice that even though this man is like open and vulnerable to her, there are some places that he just won't go with her. She knows that there's something going on in this den that nobody is telling her about. And Nalini Singh she kept that secret for a while. And
Mhm.
when you start, and she does this a lot, when you start to plant a question and you don't immediately answer, I'm like flipping pages, like what's going on? I need to know
Yeah.
everything.
The breadcrumbs, it's great. It's a great technique. It does keep you interested because something's wrong in the den. He's very emotional about it. Silver senses it. She asks his sisters. Valentin has these 3 sisters, and they're like, "You're not one of us yet. I can't tell you I like you, but you're not one of us." So, and then yeah, she keeps it. We parse out more and more and more until we get the whole deal.
I think it's important to note too, before we reveal that the whole breadcrumbs, that Valentin is the youngest of 3 sisters, yet he's
Yeah.
the alpha, and
Yeah.
they don't take anything from him. I love that. So he knows how to deal with women.
Right. Right.
And he's also the baby of the family, so he can act like a big old teddy bear to the kids too. But his sister at one point said, like, to be an alpha, you have to have a big, wide open heart. You have to love everyone. And there's this beautiful scene where uh Silver and Valentin's sister, who was the healer of the clan,
Hmm.
and the pregnant woman, the Irish pregnant woman, I'm sorry, I forget her
Moira.
name,
I remember
Moira.
her name was Moira.
They're out taking a walk,
Oh yeah.
and Moira goes into early labor.
Right.
And I'm saying there's a whole subplot with that, but the thing that I'm talking about with that is, once again, how important the alpha is to the new life that comes into the world, and how the
Oh
baby
yeah.
senses that and needs the alpha, and how all the kids, they come to the alpha and they get the reassurance, how the ones who are growing up, like the teens and the young adults, how they figure out their place in the pack and where the order is, and how the adults, how they know where their place is and where they can push and pull.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a piece of the pack, I think he said a third of the pack,
Yeah, a third.
left
Right.
and went off because they rejected Valentin because of a dark past that happened with his father.
Yeah. So we had heard, in previous books, we know that there had been experiments run on Psy. Usually, I think we've seen it in like non-predatory packs. There was a whole subplot in one of the previous books,
With the
and they would,
deer, I think.
yeah, it was like deer shifters, and it was awful. So it seems to be they did not confirm this in this book, which I think is interesting. There was no confirmation, but we strongly suspect that his father, Mikhail, was targeted because he was a loving father for many years, and then he started to turn, and it
47 years. I remember
47
because that's how old
years.
I am.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so he had all four kids. They were teenagers, and he became a serial killer. And apparently he was killing Psy, but he was also very cruel to the bears as well, and to his mate. And eventually they had to
He
put him
felt
down.
the bond break.
Yes. And so his mother is out there in bear form. She has survived physically, but not emotionally or mentally. She just couldn't handle the breaking of the mating bond, which we know is catastrophic. And also, the four kids having their father, this loving father, become this sociopath. Um, he a third of the pack, and part of Valentin himself believes he has bad blood. Like maybe there was something inside of his father that was always bad that he suppressed and that came out and might come out in him. And so that's the genesis of the split of the pack. Um, it is an interesting, like it's heartbreaking, right? Like
Yeah,
it's an awful thing
yeah.
to have happen.
But the way that the pack split, it wasn't like a neat split. Like there were some sons that left mothers, some wives that left husbands. It was they both sides were in pain. And
Mhm.
the splintered part of the pack were living like off the land. They were still living on the land, like in a really messed up cave. And Valentin would go and he would check on people and the kids because he knows, he's like, this is part of his, this is why he has such a big heart. It's like
Mhm.
these are still my people.
Right.
He didn't, I think it was 8 months that this was going on.
Yeah,
He didn't force them back. He didn't make them have a choice. He just
until
kept
the
saying, I
end.
need to give them time. And he went and he made sure to cuddle the kids because he knew they needed it. He knew
Mhm.
that the teens, that they needed to know that he was so proud of them, to give them encouragement. But the adults, they just kind of kept looking away and not
But
trying not
like,
to acknowledge.
what was their plan? It's like they just left. They stayed on the land. So yeah, they were in this satellite cave. Did they think they were going to just do that forever? Like they need an alpha, and it became very clear because the kids started fighting. The teenagers started having more fights because they're
Mhm.
not settled. Their bears aren't settled without an alpha. And they had this young healer who was killing himself because he wasn't ready to be a healer of a whole pack by himself. Like Sergei was the main one who had been his father's second, who appeared to be the leader of the split. He had no plan. They're gone for 8 months to do what? Like what? I don't know. It just was confusing to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But eventually he did have to give them an ultimatum because he saw that it was pulling everybody down. So at a point, he's like, you either have to go leave our territory, find a new alpha, or
Well,
come
I'm going
back.
to challenge you. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't just be in this middle ground, this liminal space forever.
It was interesting because they were what kept getting repeated in this book, and I'm sure she said it in other books, but the shifter law is that you keep what you can protect.
Yeah,
And
the land.
the
Yeah.
land, like if that satellite pack couldn't protect that land, the wolves were going to figure it out and encroach upon them because there
Yes.
were Russian wolves too. So
Right.
in Russia, the alphas were Caleb, the Russian alpha, who was a female, and we met her
Mhm.
before, and
Svetlana or Selinka? Selinka, I
no,
think.
that sounds right. And Valentin. And so she would have come for them. And then
And
what
the
was
and the wolves and the bears are quote unquote enemies. They're like the
Mhm.
way the leopards and the
Mhm.
wolves were before,
Mhm.
before they started intermarrying. So I expect that will happen again. They'll have to like cross those. I'm looking forward to crossing some of those barriers. But they have sort of a friendly-ish rivalry. Oh,
Mhm.
we don't like the wolves, they don't like the bears. They have names for each other. So yeah, then there was territorial disputes that, could have blossomed into something more aggressive and worse. So yeah, exactly. They had to be able to protect the land they were on.
So this is all going on as Valentin is trying to court Silver, and Silver's trying to recover. And then the conglomerate keeps blowing up humans.
Right. Yeah, there's multiple attacks. And so as the head of Mnet, Silver has to go back to work before she's really ready after being poisoned, to deal with these various emergency situations all over the world. She realizes she needs help. She's going to be hiring people. But yeah, the conglomerate, and we get Bowen, who is the head of the Human Alliance. We get a couple of scenes from his perspective and a little bit more movement on the subplot that we realized at the end of season 1, which is that the Psy-Net needs humans. They need Psy to intermarry with humans, bring them into the Psy-Net in order to stop the collapse. And so, but Psy and humans, Psy have just been doing humans dirty for too long for humans to trust them.
Which brings us back around to the villain that we are seeing in the conglomerate in this particular book. We don't get them named for a while, but we get into their perspective, and I felt like they were a Killmonger. What I mean by that is if you've seen Black Panther and you heard Killmonger's reason for why he wanted to take over Wakanda, because Killmonger was African American. He grew up in America. He was African father, I'm assuming an American mother.
Mm-hmm.
And he grew up in America, and he saw the plight of Black Americans in America. And he's looking at the Wakandans like, y'all don't see the suffering over here and y'all could do something about it? No. So there's you understand that, you understand his logic. This villain had some logic that you were like, this makes sense. This he's human, he's male, and his fear is that these Psy, they can take over our minds. They can basically rape our minds and make us do whatever they want. We have no protections. We need to protect ourselves. He's making sense. However, Leslie wants to say something.
Well, just because it happened to his wife. His wife had been victimized by a Psy, and he's got kids. And so as someone who is a victim of this, it's very real. It did happen. And that's what I wanted to point out.
However, as readers, we know in past books, and you would know in this book, because Silver is telling us, it's very hard to do that. It takes a lot of energy to do that. It's not worth it for most Psy to actually go in and try to control a human's mind. It's better to just sit down and have a conversation with them and talk it out. So we see that.
Well, we've seen there's plenty of psychopaths and serial killers, and also people, industrial espionage. Like, a lot of humans have created a lot of innovation. Since the Psy were silent, they weren't really innovating, so they would just steal innovation out of a human's mind. So I think it happened. It wasn't like a thing that didn't happen, but it wasn't as common as an everyday occurrence. But it was a constant fear because, you're right, humans have no recourse. And that's why Bowen, the head of the Human Alliance, has this chip in his head that's killing him, but it prevents any sort of psychic interference. And so they put those chips in their head several books ago, and now they're failing.
The way I took it was that the leadership, there's bad humans and there's bad changelings, there's bad Psy, and bad Psy would do it. But the average Psy was like, it's too much trouble. I'm not even gonna try.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the average everybody's probably pretty good, but you live in fear of the ones who aren't good. And that is this villain, it twisted him to the point of being okay with all this collateral damage and murder and horrible destruction.
And there are even people talking to him and saying, well, what about this? Or what about that? And I could just feel, I think Nalini Singh did a really good job of someone who has a valid point, but they took it to an extreme. And all we heard were the extreme. Like, someone was making a very plausible argument to this person. And that person just kept looking past it and just going to the extreme.
Yeah.
Which is what I think made them the villain. Because if they had come and had a sensible conversation, I'd be like, you were making really good points. But because they took it to the extreme, I was like, no, I'm not on your side.
Like with Bowen, so at one point in the book, Caleb comes to Bowen and reveals, hey, we need your help because the Psy need humans. We just want the Human Alliance's help to facilitate meetings between the Psy and the humans so that they can potentially fall in love. It doesn't work if we force the humans. They have to come into the net willingly. And in exchange for this, Caleb offers to put all of their resources, all the Psy resources, into figuring out a way to protect humans' minds. And Bowen is like, hey, if you really want us to help, do that first. Like, protect us first, and then we can talk, because like, do the right thing first. Don't do it in exchange for this.
Mm.
And that's exactly what you're talking about. It's like,
Valid.
yeah, it's a good point. Bowen has a real fear of things that
Mhm.
have happened. And if Caleb is real, if he's true, he's like, okay, let's protect the humans' mind so that they will trust us, because we are going to all die without them.
It's like, yeah, it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
One thing that I noted is that that Psy and Changeling pairings, and probably Psy and human pairings too, are always grumpy sunshine.
Mm,
Because Valentin is such sunshine. He is such sunshine.
yeah.
And Silver is just like, come on, dude. Oh, grumpy.
I would like, was Dev and Ekaterina,
Gotcha.
gosh, yeah, like, I don't, that might be an exception, because she wasn't really sunshine, but he's also grumpy. I felt like the nature of Psy lends them to be grumpy. I think it's interesting. Ooh, Vasek and Ivy Jane.
She
She
was
was
sunshine.
she was Psy,
True, but she was
an
she was a
empath.
male.
Yeah, yeah. I think that with a Psy, there has to be some sort of grumpy sunshine, or there tends to be, and that it
Mhm.
lends itself. And I love a grumpy
Man,
sunshine. That's
yeah. I don't usually, but
oh,
I really enjoyed.
well, Valentin
I
is great.
really enjoyed Valentin.
He's a great hero. And this is mostly a love story. Like, we talked about a bunch of other stuff that happens,
Mhm.
but the core, it's
Yeah,
not like some of the series where it's very much a serial killer or thriller. This is very much a love story, and we get kind of
yeah,
two love stories,
yeah.
right?
We do. I felt like the beginning was like the setup of a thriller,
Mm,
and the middle was just them in the den falling in love.
mhm.
Not once, but twice. Why did this happen twice, Leslie?
Well, the reason why Silver, her reason for needing to be silent or else possibly dying, is because she has another rare, unknown sort of skill or
Yeah.
ability. She's a pure telepath, but she's something
Mhm.
called a TPA. So her telepathy takes an audio component, and she
Wow.
can basically hear everything. Like, she can hear miles away, everything, and she has to suppress this constantly. And that's why
Mhm.
she was forced to be silent, and why she believes she cannot not be silent. So early on, I feel like in the book, she makes the decision to not be silent, to accept Valentin and his proposal of love, and she couches it as like a scientific experiment,
Yeah,
to make
girl.
sure that silence is really the thing for her. But her silence has been failing this whole
Yeah.
time, and she's actually kind of known it. But her sensitivity is triggered by emotion, and
Mhm.
so the more emotion she feels, the worse it gets, and she's afraid it will kill her. And so she tells Valentin about this. Did you want to jump in?
Well, I do have one criticism,
Hmm.
and it's a kind of a two-pronged criticism. Her brother, or her almost twin, because same dad, different mothers, born very
They're
close
ghetto
together.
ghetto twins. That's what we call them,
There's Irish twins and there's ghetto twins.
right?
Irish twins, same parents. Ghetto twins, two mothers, same daddy. They're ghetto twins. But her brother is an empath.
Yeah.
And they have a really tight relationship. But one of the things that her brother says early on in the book is that, if you ever failed, if your silence ever failed, I'd be right there. That didn't happen. And that,
Hmm.
yeah, that I just remember that because I'm like, where
They
is he?
they kind of explain it, because when her silence fails, she feels walled off. She knows her brother will keep her secret. They
Mhm,
mentioned something about like Arwen, that's the brother, will keep the
mhm.
secret. And so he knows, but he contacts her once and is like, "Hey, your emotions are getting kind of weird." And she's like, "I
No,
know,
that's
don't worry
it.
about it." Yeah. That is interesting though.
Yeah, that and we lost grandmother for the middle. I'm just
Yeah.
pointing it out
Mhm.
because in the middle was the love story, which that's why I'm here. But I was like, I was expecting one or the other of them to come
To
into the
pop
middle of the
up.
book. It's a
Yeah.
tiny little nitpick. I'm not
I
mad.
mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, Arwen shows up because there's one of the
One of the twins.
bears. Yeah. Yeah, another twin, right? A real twin.
Mhm.
There's some, romantic chemistry between Pavel and Arwen, and we're trying to get them together. Maybe they'll get a novella or something. Maybe they'll get a book. Who knows? Um, so yeah, she feels emotions. She tells Valentin about this. He's like, "You must live by all costs. I don't care. No matter what, you must live." And they have this whole scheme to contact Ashaya and Amara
Mhm.
and find out if there's a way to put the chip in her brain to cut off her emotions, because they think the only way that she will live and survive is to cut off her emotions. And Valentin, even though he knows it's his mate, he's willing to, give up that if she lives. And then
So she
she
has the
does. She
operation.
has the operation and she wakes up more silent than silent,
She's
super duper silent.
perfectly silent.
Yeah.
The first thing she says when she looks at him is, "I remember. I know we had a relationship." She's like, "I don't need that anymore." Think so.
Yeah.
Dun, dun,
Breaking hearts
dun.
everywhere. Crack, crack, crack.
I know.
Right?
My poor daddy bear. And he was so before she goes in to the procedure, he makes her promise that if her silence is perfect, she will go on 10 dates with him.
Yeah.
She remembers that and she says, "Sure, I don't think it's going to make any difference, but I'll go on the 10 dates with you." She forgot though that she had a crafty bear or a mate, and this man has a plan.
And also, they didn't go into the reasons why. She takes pains to explain there's like some neuro pathway strings that they implanted in her that she could reconnect, but we don't go back to that. Somehow, over the course of, and it's fun to watch. It's actually really, it's my favorite part of the book was when she became super silent. And then in her perspective, as she's doing these things that the reader knows means her silence is failing, but she hasn't put it together yet. Like she's being nice to the wolves, and because she lives in this changeling complex now for reasons, and she's like, "Oh well, it's not." It's kind of using that logic excuse. It wouldn't be logical to shut down this teenager or this child who's trying to be nice to me. Oh, it's only logical to do this. I'm going to, and she doesn't realize that she is
She's doing it
obviously
again.
feeling again. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But what brings her back to falling in love again with Valentin, what I saw that love happened the second time around when she saw that her actions were hurting him. She was so
Mm,
concerned about watch your reputation with the wolves, don't upset the children, keep the alliances with these other packs. And the moment she starts to see she sees him in pain because of
yeah.
her
Yeah.
actions, she's like, "No." It's like something inside her is like, "No, that cannot happen. He
Because the
cannot."
the mating bond is still there. He still feels it. Everyone says
Mhm.
it's impossible after her emotions were surgically removed, but he's like, "It's not dead. I don't feel like my mom, who was completely destroyed. Something is there." And we don't get a fancy explanation, and we don't really need it. It's just there, and it comes back, and we're good.
Yeah, yeah. So I loved it because she walks into his room and he just stops what he's doing. He's always like a messy bear.
Yeah.
And he's always wearing messy clothes and he's like laying out like new shirts. And she walks in and she's like, "Where are you going?" And he's kind of just like looking at her like, "You're in my room. You don't do that anymore." And he's like, "I'm ready to plan our next date. And I'm trying to figure out what shirt." And she's like, "Oh, this shirt." And he's kind of like, "What are you doing here?" And she's like, "Oh, I've decided. Yeah, I feel the bond again. Let's have what is it? Let's have naked
It's
monkey
monkey skin
skin
privileges.
privileges."
And I started laughing because his reaction was hilarious. He like basically jumps on her immediately.
Yes. No foreplay. None. Screw
He
that.
doesn't question it. He's not like, "Are you sure?" He jumps on her immediately. And we are
Immediately. It's
here for it.
perfect. Perfect. So, so they're back together, but the book isn't, we still have things to tie up. There was the pesky little who done it on the human conglomerate.
Oh, who
We
poisoned her?
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting justice. Yeah, and they
But
do introduce his name very, very late in the book of the
mhm,
actual villain, who end up being Akshay Patel, who is a human businessman, I guess, and they
mhm,
connect the dots of how he got the poison into her
mhm.
room.
It
And
wasn't her family.
yes, thank goodness it wasn't her family. She can trust her family. And grandmother is like,
Yeah.
"I'm gonna take care of this." Everyone else wants to, Caleb, Valentin, and she's like, "Nope, it's mine. I'm doing it."
So I wanted to talk about grandmother Ina versus the bomb Nikita.
We got two powerful
Yes,
Psy
matriarch.
women, matriarchs, absolutely. Silent, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Icy, cold,
Mm-hmm.
but they are different. They love their children regardless of their silence, love their children and grandchildren. Different characters though.
Mm-hmm. Where it didn't become clear to us until later that Nikita deeply loves Sasha in her
Mhm.
own way and has done everything in her
Mhm.
life to
Mhm.
ensure not only her daughter's survival, but that her daughter will thrive. We kept seeing that in the books, and
Mhm.
she would just tamp it down, even though it was clear.
Right.
She was
Even when she was trying to murder people, even when she was trying to murder some of the changelings, it was all for Sasha. And we love that
grandmother.
about Nikita.
I
So
know, right? Grandmother, though, grandmother, she was the same, but she was very open about why she was doing the things that she was doing. She took, if I correct me if I'm wrong, but she took her the Mercant kids. They didn't go to like some silent school. She took them to their own property and brought them into silence herself.
it's what it sounded like. They had a very different
Yeah.
upbringing than any of the other Psy that we
Mhm.
have read about. And as it turns out, grandmother's father was human. Like we learned that very late. So she had a different upbringing too, which is they're a different breed. The Mercants are their own
Mhm.
thing.
They're their own thing. However, grandmother would have she got to Patel, she got to him, and Silver's like, "Look, don't kill his kids," 'cause that's what she threatened. She's threatening to kill the kids, and I think she was gonna do it.
I think she would have done it too, because when she reveals how she got Patel to start talking, and he does start
Mhm,
talking, because I mean, you're right, he's like a killmonger in the way that he loves his family. I think in his mind, he's doing these horrible things for his family,
mhm,
for his
yep,
children. So when this Psy woman, who he's already afraid of, literally threatens his children, and just like Nikita, I think Nikita would kill someone else's kids for
oh,
hers.
yeah,
Ina would do it.
yeah,
And Valentin is like, and even Caleb is, well, I don't know, maybe not Caleb, but Valentin and Silver definitely were
it's
like,
like,
no, 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 we
"Whoa."
can't have that. Do not do that. And Ina's like, I'm gonna do what I have to do, okay?
Yeah, yeah,
Ina
I
effing
love it.
Mercant. She gets her
Yeah,
own little nickname too.
yeah, both I love a strong matriarch, but woo,
Hardcore.
woo.
Hardcore.
I hope we get to meet the 2 of them, we get to see them on page together, that would make me happy. There
Ina
was
and
enough.
Nikita?
Yes, yes,
Ooh,
yes, yes, put it on
that's
in
a
your list.
showdown. I want them in conflict.
I don't know if I
I
can
want
handle that.
I think it would be fun.
There is another matriarch that we haven't talked that we talked about, but the ending of we need to talk about, I think. So after Silver falls back in love and she has her emotions again, um, she goes and finds Valentin's mother.
Right. Yes. Yes. Galena, I think is her name, who has been a bear for like 15 years,
15
apparently.
years, but she's
Yeah,
kind of
just
like around, she doesn't
mhm.
leave.
She doesn't leave. And Silver recognizes that she's causing all four of her kids a lot of pain. Like they don't have a mother anymore. She's there, she's not there. When they try to approach her, she runs away, but she won't leave. And so this is this is while she's still before her feelings come back 100%, I think, right? She gets someone to take her
Mhm, mhm,
to the mother, and the mother's in bear form. She
mhm.
reads her up and down. She reads her the
She
riot act.
does.
And it's like, you cannot cause my mate pain. Okay. You are doing, and I will end you myself if you do not either leave or come back to the den. She gives her an ultimatum to this bear in bear form, in her human Psy form.
Silver
Silver
effing
effing
Mercury.
Mercant. We love it.
Yeah, and we don't I wanted more, but before the book is done, Mama Bear does come back in human form. We
Hmm.
do see that, but we don't get any scenes.
Yeah, we don't really get the reunion scene. Maybe there's some bonus somewhere.
Probably.
But yeah, yes. So we do end the book. We don't. So at one point, Bowen, well, actually, Lily, his sister, is targeted and
Mhm.
Bowen uses his body as a shield and is shot. We don't know if he's going to survive. I mean, I feel like he's going to survive, but we don't know how that's going to happen. And
His
we
book
don't
is
get
next.
any. Hmm?
His book is next.
Oh, okay. See, I don't look ahead. I like to just go in blind.
Ah!
I mean, I knew Bowen wasn't going to die, but like we got to figure out.
She pushes it to the end.
She does. Yeah. And then I was like, why don't they just ask Judd to come and like do his thing
Right?
and put his cells back together again? Like
Judd
there's
owes
people.
him.
And Bowen is so important. They're always like, okay, we need Bowen, the human alliance. He is the only one who can lead the humans. We need the humans. I feel like maybe that's the next book. I don't know, but that was a question I had. It's sort of like in the Avengers, in the Marvel universe, when things are happening that aren't an Avengers movie, and you're like, why didn't you just call the Avengers? Why is Ant-Man out here doing this by himself? Or like, I don't know, what other character? You have these other, they have to create, reasons why they couldn't call the super powerful
Mhm.
people.
Yeah.
And maybe there are reasons, like maybe Judd was busy and that does take him out of commission for a long time. But yeah, MSci, like healers don't they work on a cellular level? Maybe he wouldn't, maybe because him being human, he wouldn't accept that. I don't know. No
Oh,
answers, but he was on death's door. We did not get the answer about Valentin's father. We didn't get the confirmation. I expected
yeah.
sort of to get that 100% confirmation, but
Yeah.
that could come in another book too.
Hmm. Maybe, maybe not. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a good ending. We got our feelings
Mhm.
back. Not a ton of sex in this book, but there was a lot of good emotional um,
I
building of
was
the relationship.
satisfied.
Okay. No anxiety.
Nope. Well, I had anxiety in the beginning when there was a lot of thriller plot.
uh,
But when you can clearly see people falling in love, I'm
mhm.
there for it. And it happened the same way twice, and I was still there for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was good. The emotions were good. We love Valentin. We love bears. I
This
like
is
all
one
of
of
the
my favorites.
Russian. Hmm?
This is one of my favorites.
Yeah, oh, nice.
Top
Yeah.
3.
I like this one a lot. I don't know if it's top three or not, but I like both of these people. I like the competence. I like the
Mhm.
heart. I like their pack a lot. Well, it's good to see a new pack and their
Mm.
interactions. Subtle differences with the packs that we've seen before. And then we get we don't get too many. It's not a party. We don't check in with everybody. We check in with, we see Caleb, we see Ashaya. We got a glimpse of Dorian. I think he was just like standing around in the corner
Yeah.
when Ashaya comes up.
Of course.
Yeah, Bowen, but that's enough. Just ease us in. We hear
No.
about a lot of people.
Well, it's just supposed to be like a new start, so
Right.
I can understand.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is a lot when we have to check in with everybody that we've seen before. That just makes my head spin. So I appreciate, targeted checking in. And
Agreed.
yeah, apparently Bowen's book is next because you skipped ahead.
I just looked because I had to add it to I had to, when you finish your book, you gotta go to Goodreads and update it because, we're getting near to the end of the year, so y'all need to be watching your challenge.
Oh
So
yeah.
I needed this tick up on my challenge, and immediately added the next book, and I saw that it was Bowen.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and I'll read. I don't even know the name of the next book, but
It's
I will find out later.
Ocean Light,
Ooh. Okay.
and I'm ready for it. I was like, I'm not gonna start it until Leslie and I talk, and now I'm gonna start it.
Because
'Cause I wanna know
these
what
books
happens.
are longer. They take longer to read than the previous ones. I was like, ooh, I'm not gonna make our recording date. But yeah, a lot of good stuff happening. So I'm
Very good
excited
stuff.
for the next one too.
Yay.
Yay.
So, guys, that was Silver Silence. And since we have been away from you guys so long, there's tons of magic that has happened in the summer. Leslie, do you have any everyday magic that you want to share with us?
Yes, I do. Okay, so we are recording this in the beginning of October 2024. And if you listen to my podcast, My Imaginary Friends, you will already know this. But for the rest of you, I've spent much of this year plotting. I've been plotting 2 books. I've been submitting proposals to my publisher. And finally, I am writing a book. I have not really been writing a book this whole year. I did like a proposal, I did a short story. And I'm like 25,000 words into this first draft. It feels good to be writing again. I mean, I hate first drafts, so it feels awful, but it also feels good to be writing again. And stay tuned. Hopefully, there'll be a book on your shelves in 2026 because it'll be traditionally published. And that is how long it takes. But I'm excited about it and I'm liking this idea and looking forward to the revision when I actually bring it together from these terrible words that I'm writing in the first draft just to get the story out of my head into the well-crafted words that you've come to expect from a Leslie Penelope or L. Penelope book. And let me know, what is your everyday magic?
Mine is so simple. It's fall. And in the fall, the thing that I love the most, even though these are all year round, there's just something different about them in the fall. Honey crisp apples.
Ooh, yes. I've got 3 in my kitchen.
They are the best things in the I swear to you. They taste good year round, but in the fall, there's just something. I don't know. I remember the first time I had a Honeycrisp apple, I was pregnant with my daughter. And I remember my boyfriend at the time, who later I married, I'm divorced. And this is probably why I'm divorced. We were walking out the store and there was a homeless person on the corner and he gave the homeless person a pregnant woman's Honeycrisp apple. And I just looked at him like he was crazy.
See, I thought that was going in a different direction, but I have not been pregnant, so I cannot understand the weight of that. I thought it was like, oh, he wouldn't give the homeless man any food, and then no, he gave him your food.
Apple, Leslie.
He could have given him some other food. All right, I get you. That's fine. Yes, the nerve, the gall, the unmitigated gall. Can you believe it? Taking food out of a pregnant woman's mouth.
Pregnant woman's mouth. But I have all the Honeycrisp apples to myself because the other thing that happened this summer is I am now an empty nester.
Woohoo!
So when I put a Honeycrisp apple in the fruit basket, it stays there until I eat it. It is the most amazing thing. When I put ice cream in the freezer, it's the same as when I put it there, like the same amount. I don't understand this world.
2 decades since you've had this experience. I mean,
2 decades. I was told you only have to care for kids for 18 years. That is not true. They don't leave.
Someone lied to you.
Yes.
I'm sorry. But I'm glad that you now have your home to yourself, your fridge, your pantry to yourself.
My apples. It's
your
the
apples.
best thing in the world.
Yay.
So I hope you guys are enjoying some kind of magic this fall. And we want to thank you so much for joining us. Please do let us know what you think about this episode. You can leave a comment on YouTube with your thoughts. You can share it with a friend who loves romance. And please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
And you can always check out our book schedule on our website, inkandmagic.net, so that you can read along with us with season 2 of Psy-Changeling / Psy-Trinity. And we will see you next time.
We did it!
Woo-hoo!
Bye, Leslie.
Bye.